Like I said, our top focus tonight is the BCCI's affidavit against, or rather opposing, certain provisions of the Lodha panel report. And to discuss that further, we'll be joined by our consulting editor Boria Majumdar and retired Justice Mukul Mudgal, who headed the panel in the IPL spot fixing saga. Welcome to both our guests. Stung by Supreme Court's diktat, the BCCI has finally submitted its objections and roadmap for implementing the Lodha panel recommendations in the Supreme Court. India Today has exclusive information that the BCCI has raised 5 central objections. Take a look at them before we chat with our guests. BCCI's biggest objection is to the one state, one vote proposal. Every voice coming out of the board has so far called it impossible to implement. The report suggests whichever unit will have the vote will also have operational control over the entire administrative unit of the state. BCCI will argue that this means if Mumbai has the vote in Maharashtra, they can pick players from Vidarbha or all over the state, rendering the other two teams seriously weakened or void. Then comes the proposed telecast structure. The board feels that if implemented, they stand to lose a huge amount of money. 80% of the board's income could evaporate if this is implemented. This drop will have a direct effect on state associations whose income will come tumbling down from 25 to 30 crore rupees to just 4 to 5 crore rupees. BCCI feels even the pension scheme for former players will have to be scrapped. Further, IPL franchise owners will get only 15 to 20 crore rupees from the usual 45 to 50 crores. BCCI will also bring up the commercial breaks issue. The board will make it clear that the BCCI sells the game to the broadcasters. This means that taking commercials is not in their hands. Instead, it's the broadcasters' prerogative to take commercial breaks and sell them to advertisers. While BCCI has suggested it has no issues with age and tenure norms, it will seek to make the point that they are not consistent. BCCI will argue that the Lodha committee recommendations do not clarify the age limit for IPL Governing Council chairmen and selectors, and those who are not elected can serve beyond 70. This in addition to the fact that BCCI also has objections to the 2 franchise representatives being added to the IPL Governing Council. BCCI feels this will lead to further conflict of interest. Sports Bureau, India Today. Let me go across to Justice Mukul Mudgal first up. Sir, in your view, the one state, one vote, which is garnering the most attention so far as the BCCI and those watching the BCCI are also concerned, do you feel that this does this does change the structure of the BCCI in such a fundamental way that the BCCI can argue they cannot implement it?
No, I would not like to speak on this issue. I'd like to speak on the second issue, that is the advertisement this thing, because this issue was really arose because certain states were disenfranchised, and really it was on basis of that. I'm not sure of my views on the first point, but can I start with the second issue?
Yeah.
If you like.
Sure.
The issue of advertisements. What had happened was, earlier in telecast, maybe 5 to 7 years ago, you may recollect that the last ball of the over sometimes and the first ball of the next over sometimes was overridden by advertisements. This led to considerable disquiet among serious watchers, and I believe that the BCCI and ICC constituted committees to oversee the broadcasters, and penalties are now imposed. In my view, in the last 5 to 7 years, I don't think this issue has arisen. You may recollect the matches shown recently.
Right.
In none of them, this issue has arisen. So while the concerns are justified, they no longer exist. And I'm sure if the Honorable Supreme Court permits the committee, the BCCI, to approach the Lodha panel again, I'm sure they will have a look at it, because they're all very, very reasonable and learned judges. And I'm sure if the BCCI is able to convince them, subject of course to the Honorable Supreme Court permitting them to do so.
All right, very important point there, Justice Mudgal. Let me go across to Boria on the one state, one vote. Boria, we have been speaking about this on India Today, just why the BCCI is so vehemently opposed to it. Can you tell us more about their arguments that are going to be in court when they get a hearing?
Yes, Shivani, I mean, before that, just to echo what Justice Mudgal said, I don't think the BCCI wants to confront. I mean, having spoken to the top brass of the BCCI, it is not a confrontational approach. The approach is one of reconciliation. The approach is one of trying to go back to the Lodha panel to express their concerns. To your question, two central points. While you and I have had major discussions on this, while the Justice Lodha panel is clear that the structure of cricket will not get affected, the BCCI feels it will, because there is a line in that report which says whichever institution or association has the vote will also have operational control over the administrative area of that particular state. So if that is Mumbai, Mumbai can also pick players from Vidarbha, Maharashtra, and will have control over Vidarbha and Maharashtra, which means what happens to the teams from Vidarbha and Maharashtra? What is their area of operation? So there are serious concerns as far as the board is concerned about this point, which they think makes it almost impossible to implement or unfeasible or impractical. That's what they will go back and tell the court, that can we please go back to the Lodha panel with all our 5 concerns that you raised. But it's not a confrontation, because they know it's a Supreme Court appointed committee and they cannot just go and say and be blasé about it.
Absolutely. Let me take that to Mr. Mudgal. Sir, in your view, just how much wriggle room does the BCCI really have? Because this is a Supreme Court appointed committee. It was given the mandate to make constitutional changes to the BCCI. What could be the future course of action? I'm just trying to understand from you what happens from here on, even if the Supreme Court agrees that yes, there is some maneuvering room. Will they send it back? Will they send the BCCI back to Justice Mudgal, or will they give a final decision on it? Justice Lodha, rather.
No, they won't send it back to me. They'll just send it to Justice Lodha. Look, the BCCI has to convince the Honorable Supreme Court that their concerns may be addressed. They'll be well advised to address them, because you see, in the court the maneuvering room is small, and this is the Chief Justice's court who is dealing with constitution matters, and the time available to them may not be enough, according to me. So if the court permits them to go, then I think they'll be well advised to redress these issues by pointing out what according to them are the anomalies before the Lodha committee. And I'm sure if the anomalies are found to be genuine, surely the Lodha committee will, I'm sure, will look into it and make appropriate orders.
So you're saying that there is room for the Supreme Court to say, okay, go back to the Lodha panel with your concerns and make appropriate changes, isn't it?
Yeah, that there is room, provided BCCI persuades the Honorable Supreme Court to do so. Okay?
And in your judgment, Mr. Mudgal...
And as Boria said, the proper approach...
Yes, go ahead.
Yes. No, you were saying something.
Yes, I was asking you, in your view, are there any other sticky points that you find in this report, and overall, how would you judge this report?
No, the report is very fine and detailed report, and I don't think the points have already been addressed by you. I don't think there is any other point which requires any concern. The major issues like age and tenure, the BCCI is accepting, and some of that have been implemented also, such as appointment of an ombudsman. So I think the confrontationalist approach is not going to work, because it's the order of the Supreme Court and the present Chief Justice. And it is much better to persuade the Honorable Court, that give us an opportunity to persuade the Lodha panel, and if the court agrees, they may get that opportunity.
Absolutely. And Boria, I also believe that, this concept of conflict of interest, if two nominees of the franchises are put into the IPL Governing Council, is also going to be one of those very sticky issues for the BCCI.
Absolutely, Shivani, because they feel that if they are franchise reps, I mean not people from outside nominated by the franchises, if they are franchise reps, then obviously they will have the interest of that particular franchise in mind, which will lead to fresh conflict of interest. But the point that I want to stress is the BCCI has to go and show the Supreme Court real intent, that it is intent, it has intent to go ahead and advocate reform and implement reform. If they are willing to do that and able to do that, I think dialogue is the way forward. I don't think egos are of any importance here. I think the ultimate goal for everybody here is improvement of Indian cricket and reform of Indian cricket. That's what the Supreme Court set out to achieve, and that's what everybody wants. So maybe the BCCI needs to show intent, and if they're able to do that, they'll get one opportunity to go back to the Lodha panel and represent their concerns.
All right. The big point coming out from here, Justice Mukul Mudgal saying that while there was a concern on advertisements overlapping with action, creating discomfort with audiences, that concern no longer exists. So certainly on that area, the BCCI will have a leg to stand on. Justice Mukul Mudgal and Boria Majumdar, thanks a lot for joining us. The BCCI affidavit will come up in the Supreme Court on Thursday. We'll keep getting you all the latest from the Supreme Court as well. We slip into...
Well, the National Human Rights Commission has taken suo motu cognizance of a media report that the central government has removed customs duty waiver and also imposed excise duty on certain life-saving drugs.
पैसे वाले बाबू मेरा बजट बना दो, पैसे वाले बाबू मेरा बजट बना दो, बजट बना दो, बजट बना दो, पैसे वाले